last video of this project, we did get this thing working. It's just, unfortunately, it started spewing oil out of the drain on the bottom of this engine, which is definitely not good. We definitely have to fix it. Now, after looking at the videos of how I modified this engine case, looking at the pictures, I do think I know how the oil is somehow finding its way out of the engine. And now that I know this, I'm kind of mad at myself for not realizing that this was going to be an issue and fixing this before I reassembled this thing. But it is fixable. It just means we have to tear this whole thing apart. We have to seal some passageways that I left open in this engine. And I'm pretty sure that will solve the oil leaking issue. So yeah, it does, but it does mean we do have to completely tear this whole thing apart to fix it, unfortunately. Yeah, I never thought I would have this thing back apart so soon. Now, what I think is going on is because we knew that the transmission's going to be splashing a bunch of oil, and oil will be splashed up into this chamber. The only reason I can think of this chamber being here is because on this engine case, the opening's pretty big and it's directly above this bearing. So possibly why I think this chamber is here is for oil to get up in here and then drain back onto this bearing as well as the bearing for the clutch basket. I think that's why this is here. I can't think of anything else. I kind of had a feeling that oil will get splashed up in here and possibly leak down through this crack not really crack, but this tiny little opening right here and drain into this chamber. That's why I drilled the hole right here to allow any oil that gets in here to drain back into the transmission. And you can kind of tell that this chamber right here is supposed to be dry because it has this little hole right here that allows for any water or oil that gets in here to drain back out on the ground. And when this engine was leaking oil, all the oil was leaking out of this hole right here, as well as this little hole right here. Now, what I think is going on is oil is getting splashed up into this and leaking down through this hole or through this opening and getting into here. But also, it's leaking past all of this giant opening and getting into the stator chamber, because when I removed this bolt, a bunch of oil leaked out of this. And this stator chamber has a drain right here. So if any water gets in the stator, it can drain out this hole, drain into here, and then drain out on the ground. So I'm pretty sure just oil is getting splashed up in here, going through here, getting in the stator, draining out this hole, getting in here, and then draining out on the ground. So how we're gonna solve this is simply, we're just gonna take a bunch of JB Weld and fill in all of these openings all along here. We're gonna fill in this hole right here, as well as fill this hole right here. And we're also going to fill in not really fill in, more just seal off all of these openings right in here. I'm pretty sure that will solve this issue. I filled in all the cracks, all the openings, all the potential spots to leak oil. I filled it with JB Weld and let it cure overnight. Now, hopefully this solves the issue of this thing leaking oil. Now, I've already filmed time lapses and, close-ups of reassembling this thing, so I don't think I need to do that again. So I may just do one really quick time lapse of just slapping this thing back together. Now, you guys have all seen the thumbnail and title, so you kind of have an idea on what's going on, but before I put that engine back on the dirt bike frame, I kind of really want to see what it will do on this first. This is my really old YZ85 shifter cart that I built years and years ago, and I've kind of always wanted to put an electric motor on this thing, and I think that engine would be perfect on this, because I have seen a bunch of videos on YouTube of people taking shifter carts and putting an electric motor on one and still calling it a shifter cart. They just call it an electric shifter cart. But one can argue, is it still a shifter cart if it doesn't shift gears? So with this one, because of what I built, it'll be electric, but it'll still have gears and a clutch, so it'll be a true electric shifter cart. So yeah, we're only doing this temporary. I just want to see what this thing will do, what that engine will do on this, just for this video, and the next video of this project, we will take that engine and put it back on the dirt bike frame. Let's see if this thing has any coolant in it. A little bit. Wow, is that it? The brakes still work. That's good. Now, for the gearing on this, because we have an electric motor that is more torque than RPM, and we have a 6-speed gearbox, which is essentially 5 gears of gear reduction, I decided to go with almost 1-to-1 gearing. So this is a 12-tooth sprocket on the motor, and this is a 13-tooth sprocket that's going to be going on the axle. So I'm hopefully this is going to make this thing insanely fast. Now, let me take a quick moment to shout out my Patreon page. Now, the way that I film these videos for YouTube, by the time I upload part 1 of a project to YouTube, I've already filmed part 2, part 3, and I started filming part 4. Now, that kind of makes it a bit of a challenge to post stuff on Instagram, because I don't want to be posting on Instagram of part 4 or part 3 when I've only uploaded part 1 to YouTube. So I try to take pictures, take quick little video of the stuff I'm working on, and try to save it to upload to Instagram around the time I'm ready to upload it to YouTube. But then I end up forgetting, and I never really post it. So what I'm starting to do recently is I'm starting to just post this stuff on Patreon. So if you guys want some early access of the stuff I'm working on now, instead of waiting for, you know, the 3 or 4 weeks by the time I upload it to YouTube, subscribe to my Patreon page. The link will be down in the description below. So, I think a perfect spot for the battery is behind the seat. So, oh, that actually doesn't fit. Well, I thought it would be a perfect spot for it, but I could mount it leaning like that. That's enough space. I mean, it kind of fits right here. And then maybe we can fit the controller back here. Huh. There it goes. So, these are the new tires we're going to be using for this project. Now, Go Power Sports actually gave me these. kind of a long time ago to use for a project that I kind of never got around to. So yeah, huge thank you to Go Power Sports for giving me these tires. Even though we're not using them for the project that they were intended, they'll work perfect for this project. Now, to hold the battery in place, I'm just gonna use duct tape. It only has to be temporary, so... Perfect. Alright, so I'm really hoping the modifications we did to this engine fixed the oil leak. So, we're about to find out. Oh, are you kidding me? Ah, are you kidding me? Yeah, what is it with this engine and leaking oil? It's not leaking out of the seal. Is it a pinhole? Yeah, this time it's not my fault. It's also not the gasket. There's a little... Why didn't I see that? Why wasn't this leaking in the last video? There's a tiny little pinhole. Not really tiny, but it's a pinhole on the bottom of the clutch cover. Yeah, this thing just refuses to hold oil, so I guess pull out the JB Weld. Gotta fix it. So, I cleaned it up and covered it with JB Weld. So, if this was aluminum, I would just take this off and weld it, but it's magnesium. So, I definitely don't want to weld that. Now, all you have to do now is just wait for it to dry. Yay, I love waiting. So, I let the JB Weld dry overnight, so hopefully it no longer leaks. If this thing still leaks oil, I'm not going to be happy. So far, so good. Still dry. Let's finish putting the oil in. So, this thing is now finished. We got all the wiring installed. We got the shifter installed. Steering's working. Clutch is working. Brakes should be working. The throttle is... Let me show you guys the throttle. So for the throttle, because we have a twist grip throttle, and I couldn't just simply put this on the steering wheel because I need to be able to shift and everything, I basically just did this. It's basically a piece of string tied to the throttle pedal that's wrapped around the twist grip throttle, so therefore when you hit the throttle pedal, it pulls the string and twists the throttle. So it's not stupid if it works. Alright, that's low gear, first gear. This is high gear. Oh man, that's violent. It's working! That doesn't sound good. Alright, before I put this thing on the ground, I just want to see what this thing looks like with the tires spinning in the air. So, is it on? Now it's on. So right now, the electric motor is on high range, so... So that's first gear. That's neutral. And that is sixth gear. So one thing I'll admit I kind of don't like about this setup is the way that this transmission is, because the way that the clutch dogs engage, there's a lot of play to allow them to, you know, engage while it's at speed, which means that when it's in gear, there's a good amount of play in the whole thing, which makes it to where when I'm blipping the throttle, it just slams into gear. I don't know if you guys can see this on camera, but basically this whole thing just shakes every time it does it. Yeah, and it is really, really hard on basically everything in the engine, in the motor, because it's basically just slamming into gear every time I flip the throttles. So if there was a fault with this setup, that is it right there. So hopefully this thing survives. So that is something I'm going to have to really, really be careful of just slamming on the throttle, you know, when this thing's on the ground. That is a possibility of a way to break this thing. Alright, let's finally put this thing on the ground, see what it can do. Don't fall. Oh, that was close. Alright, so I am curious how well this thing will do a burnout, at least on wood. I did put a little water down just to kind of help it, but... Here. I can do a smoky burnout. Yep. And by the way, that was first gear. I'm not trying it in the higher gears. Brakes work. Alright, let's finally see what this thing can do. Cameras rolling? They are rolling. Ooh. Well, the brakes kind of work. Not great, I'll admit. I also hate how much traffic is on this road nowadays. Is that sixth gear? It is.
Oh, so that was full throttle. Okay, it's not as fast as I thought it was gonna be, I'll admit. I thought it was gonna be a little faster than that, but still fun though. All right, do I dare go down that road? I think I dare. Man, that's a hard. Stop doing that. Oh man, this thing is fun. Everything's still good. No melting wires, nothing's falling off. Here we go. To turn on my speedometer app. Oh, this thing's fun. Okay, this turn's a bit gnarly. Make sure there's no cars. Let's putt around a little bit. because I want to see what this thing can do, but I'm trying not to speed and be reckless. Although this thing is very loud, it does sound awesome. You do not hear these kind of noises normally with something electric. Alright. I kind of thought this thing would spin tires a little bit more, but not really. Man. Oh, this thing is so much fun. Yeah. I wish I'd turned on my speedometer app. Metal shavings in my hair. When you're a machinist, you get used to that. I did think this thing was going to be a little bit faster than that, but it is still fun. And this was on high range as far as the electrical motor, so maybe I can play around with the tuning of this motor and see if I can get a little bit more RPM out of this thing. But for a dirt bike, that's definitely fast enough. Yeah. This thing's fun. This thing is fun.